Massive $9 million ad campaign could not sway Austin voters. They shot down Prop 1 yesterday by more than 10 points, 12 points to be exact, forcing ride-sharing companies to get fingerprint background checks. Uber and Lyft both say they will now stop operations as of tomorrow morning in Austin. KXAN's Phil Prazen shows us what our options are now.
Amber Rosillo and Aaron Lamone visit Austin from San Antonio. They went through a ride-hailing battle last year.
I think it'll go back to normal, something like that, a service like that, it just needs to calm down a little bit.
They walk along South Congress, a frequent stop for rideshare drivers.
I was very disappointed. We used Uber and Lyft probably 5 or 6 times a week.
With 8 years in Austin under his belt, Tim Hooper fears going back to the days when taxis were the best option.
Even one night, there were so few cabs, and we were trying to get a cab home, and we were jumped by a group of guys who punched us in order to steal our cab because it was so hard to get a ride home.
This is the latest example of Uber and Lyft and staring contests with cities across the state. The city of Austin will now grapple with a period of change after Proposition 1 fails. Thousands of drivers and passengers will look to mass transit and smaller ride-hailing companies for their options to get around town. Many hope it's only temporary.
I don't think it'll be permanent. I think that they'll come to some kind of agreement, some kind of arrangement that will work for everyone.
Phil Prazen, KXAN News.
Now, Uber says they'll keep operating in Austin's suburbs but not come into the city. That would rule out rides to the airport because that is within the city limits. One of the companies ready to take on a bigger load here is Get Me. A few months ago, the company had around 500 drivers taking folks around town and making deliveries. But after Prop 1, the company's boss, Jonathan Laramie, says there are up to 4,500 drivers, that they're working with other companies like Zipcar and Wings, and working with the city of Austin. They hope to create a driver-on-demand option here.
This isn't about Get Me coming in as a rescue whatever. This is about other TNCs. It's about the city. It's about other cities. It's about the citizens. It's about the on-demand drivers. And, we're there to support.
Get Me launched in Austin back in December. This is not Uber and Lyft's first political battle in Texas. The ride-sharing companies left San Antonio for several months last year after city council there passed fingerprint background checks. They came back months later after the city's fingerprinting became optional. Uber's also looking to leave Houston over the same issue. Lyft suspended operations there back in 2014. Uber and Lyft stopped working in Corpus Christi 2 months ago as well, all because of this fuss. Uber also left Galveston and Midland earlier this year over other issues. Lyft does not operate in those cities. This, by the way, was the most expensive election in Austin history and ranks right up there as one of the top in any city election in recent history. Uber and Lyft supporters spent $8.6 million to eventually lose the election. That shattered the record held by Austin Mayor Steve Adler. He spent $1.2 million on his successful 2014 run. Last year, the Houston anti-discrimination ordinance known as HERO was voted down. According to Ballotpedia, supporters raised almost $2 million. Opponents spent just $600,000 and won. And the 4 candidates who ran for mayor in San Antonio last year spent more than $4 million combined. Incumbent Ivy Taylor beat former state senator Letitia Van de Putte. Less than 24 hours after Prop 1 failed, one local state lawmaker is already saying he wants to regulate companies like Uber and Lyft statewide instead of cities making the rules. Williamson County State Senator Charles Schwartner intends to introduce a bill next year. In part, he says it's clear ride-sharing companies cannot operate effectively through a patchwork of inconsistent and anti-competitive regulations, adding, any legitimate safety or liability concern deserves to be addressed.